Well, we're talking about it now.
All right,
Right now? I forgot what we were talking about.
I don't know.
His
But he knows.
the scammers trying to scam on us.
There's always scammers trying to scam. I call them predatory customers.
I know. I'm just, you know,
My friend
you know
can
how
fix
it
it
goes.
cheaper.
What is up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome. Talking to you. We're just getting started off. We were just talking here behind the scenes here on the pre-game. Had some technical difficulties, but we got it back in the in action, and yeah, popping out my chat,
I gotta go hit the like button.
popping out.
You know, we're supposed to do all this before we start the live stream, and we don't ever do it until we start the live stream.
Well, it's just customary.
I like that.
It's
I like
just-
that.
We have tradition of being professionals. That's what it is.
I like that hat, Ray.
That one?
Yeah, I like that.
It's yep. I like this hat. I like BG stuff too.
Oh yeah, I love their stuff,
I
man.
keep getting ripped on because they're like, "Oh, you're sold out. You know, you're selling BG stuff." And I'm like, "You guys, that's the stuff. That's what I sell in my store, and it works. That's why I sell it in my store."
That's
So
the
he's
in the
industry
dealership.
standard. Do people not know that?
It's like-
that is like the industry standard.
I know everybody. Well, I don't know. They may not know when we get those cans, the little chips, the little coin plastic things at the bottom where we can, you know, turn it and get what, like the $1 spiff for what each little token or
Quit doing
25
that with
cents
us.
per
so
digit.
25.
It's
25
25 cents per digit, right? So if you get a can with a 4 on it, that one's worth $1.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that.
I don't
Thanks.
know. No, it was the chip in the bottom. I heard back in the day, but our dealer, our BG guy, he didn't do that with us. We don't get that. It's Valvoline. So we started using some of the Valvoline stuff, like some of the induction cleaner, like from more of the commercial side for like the shop heavier duty stuff. Valvoline actually has a heavier duty line that they supply, like your shop, Ray, or the dealers or whatever, and we'll have them come in and also supply us as well. Now, for every service that you provide a customer, there's a sticker on the inside of the plastic, and if you peel that sticker off and you put it on your stamp sheet, which all these little boxes all the way across, there's like 10 to 15 rows across, and there's 10 to 15 rows down. You put a sticker, put a sticker, put a sticker, put a sticker. And every service that you provide, you take a sticker off, it's worth $1.
Yeah. Yep.
So
That's how TerraClean is too. It's $1 per sticker.
That's how we had.
I remember being the new guy at the dealership, and back then, before, you know, pre-COVID and all that other stuff, there's so many services coming in. People would spend so much more money on keeping their vehicles up to date. Hell, I had one time when the Valvoline guy came in after like 2 months or a month or two, and I had 155 stickers front and back, and he was like, "Whoa, man, you're gonna have a nice little bonus card here." And I was like, "Well, I hope I get it. I keep getting it." And well, then right after that, you know, shortly, like right before COVID, was the last time I seen him. And then once the whole epidemic started, people quit doing that shit. They didn't service their vehicles like the same anymore.
Well, you'd be lucky if they're even servicing it anyway. I had a 22 today, 10,000 miles overdue for oil change.
How about that one I sent you on Facebook? 60,000 miles on a fuel filter. And an F-150 diesel.
Hey, what was up with that module? Just an extra module laying in the truck?
I bet it was Roush forgot
He
to
tells
grab it.
me that he was looking for his wheel lock key and where the jack handles were. He's like, I found this plastic box. What the hell is it? I'm like, get out of here. You found this just laying in you're under your back seat? That's supposed to be inside your driver's seat. Wow.
Yeah.
I bet Roush was putting in modules there in Kentucky and just said, "Yep, this one's on the list. It's there. Chuck it in there." That's exactly what they would do. Ask me how I know. I've done it.
My 2011 FX4 that I had, I lifted up the back seat, the little cargo area. There was one inner brake pad that was brand new. I was like, where are the other brake pads? Like you put three of them on, not four. Just one brake pad sitting there. Like,
All right, say, hey, before we get kicked off and too deep into this discussion, there was something that popped up on social media between all the mechanics, technicians and stuff, dealership, non-dealership, independent guys. And it's a pretty good question. Aaron, do you care if I kick it off with it?
Kick it off, baby.
All right. So when you're doing brakes, when you clean everything up, for one, do you reuse the hardware? Do you put the new hardware on? Do you lubricate the brake pads or do you put the brake pads on dry?
I use new hardware and I lubricate the back of the brake pad.
Same. I lubricate the ears of the pads or they go into the hardware,
I don't
Just
do
on,
the
like,
ears.
just like on the tips of them.
I use
Yeah,
new
so-
hardware and do not lubricate the brake pads.
Yeah, so the general consensus is most independent guys I noticed would say most of the independent guys brought this fact up. Did it come from the factory with grease on the ears? No, it didn't. So when I put new hardware and stuff on there, I'm not putting grease on the ears either. I'm not gonna.
Oh, I guess I never realized that.
So a lot of the guys were showing like brand new vehicles, like this first
Hmm.
breakdown. There's no grease on this anywhere. The only thing you clean and grease is the slide pins. And a lot of guys said, we're not going to use, especially if people are bringing in aftermarket pads, we're not going to use the aftermarket clips and stuff that go on it. We're going to leave the OE stuff on there and clean it up because they simply fit better and the pads slide back and forth better. So there were guys that went that far as well. Some guys said, no, you clean it up. You only grease the slide pins and you put everything back on dry just like it came from the factory.
But I've had them
do it.
before
Wow.
where you don't lubricate the pad, they'll squeal.
Well, and that's why I do a hybrid of what you and Aaron do. I've had them where they make noise and they have like a brake grunt. If you don't put just a light film on, like you do, Anthony, it'll be like a grunt when you go to press on the brake. You put a light film of some kind of caliper grease or whatever on there, whatever your choice is that's equivalent, and that grunt goes away. And you know, I'll have some of them where they'll squeak as the pad's moving back and forth a little bit. And you pull the pads off and lubricate where Aaron says, like right where the ear is, and a squeak will go away.
BG
So-
has the stuff you put on the pad material.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, they have like
That stuff works pretty good, man.
it's
Really?
an application for break-in, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
you just
so
put it on
go
the
ahead,
pad and
sorry.
then rub it in with your finger. And then it
Mhm.
turns the pad like black or whatever. It soaks into the material and it keeps it from squealing.
now I
Yeah.
have like a
I'm not a fan of that stuff, to tell you the truth. I'm not a fan of putting stuff in the friction material.
I wasn't either, but it actually does work. So
Mhm.
we had to do it for the
Slather it up.
recall. Was it for the escapes where they with the electronic parking brake where they squeal in reverse or they grind? It sounds like a
Well,
grind.
Let's hang on a second. Let's back up some because there's a huge array and variety of aftermarket pads. I mean, you can get a $20 set of pads and you can get a $95 set of pads.
I like thermoquiets.
Maybe you know, for example, you take what's the Import Direct? They've got like a coating on their pads, which is supposed to help out in break-in, and they're kind of a fairly premium pad. I mean, they're like $60 for the pad set. So I wouldn't think a pad of that level would qualify to have, you know, some kind of, you know, like the BG stuff. I think the BG stuff would be better suited for like a lower quality, you know, metallic pad.
Like a regular freaking AutoZone Duralast basic $19 pad set or something.
Yeah, that puts off like a lot of
maybe
brake
that
dust.
solves the lubrication issue. You know, maybe you probably should be putting some lube on some $25 Duralast, you know, just kind of cheapo run of the mill pads when the engineering is built into the $60 or $70 set of pads where you don't need all that extra stuff. You don't need that grease to keep it from chattering because the
See,
fitment's good enough where it doesn't chatter.
Look at Brembo pads. A lot of the Brembo pads have this sticky paper that you peel off of it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I like Brembos. I
What
like
about
Brembo.
Fort Boston? We're doing like Explore a patrol car front brakes, you know, in the brake pad box with the hardware, you'll get the little bag, a little squeeze bag of like the coppery. No, where is that? Is that supposed to be for the slides or is that supposed to be for the pad?
You know, that's a good
Slides.
question.
Because
What
I always
do-
use that to put right on the ears of the pads as it's sitting in the metal clip, so it's not
Oh.
metal to metal.
I'll pull my pins and I'll clean them up and I'll put a little bit on that. And I try to save a little bit and I'll put a little bit on the ears. So you're you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I see everybody's point. There's one point that one guy brought up that nobody really hit on is he said, actually, I'll go as far as when I change the pads and stuff out, a lot of times when you go to put the pad in, it don't want to fit right.
Mhm.
And he said,
That's the worst.
sometimes if it don't fit right, you know, you can pull the clips off and stuff. And 90% of the time, I have to say somebody that responded to him was spot on. They said most of the time that's because you have rust jacking behind those clips and you didn't clean off all the rust that's back behind it. And you really should get like a fine file out or something to get down in that groove and clean it out completely and then
Yeah.
put your clips back on. And then your pad will slide in real good. But there is a small percent where you get cheaper pads and they just freaking gob tons of paint on it. And you got to clean up the ears. You got to take your grinder to it and clean some of that paint down just so they can fit in there right because of the quality of the material you're using. So this could go 600 ways to Sunday, man. You don't, you know, it's do what works for you is what I say.
I can feel you. I can feel you. It's I don't know, brakes. Just we all have to do brakes, and see what Don says real quick. Hey, Rod, I'm planning to upgrade my fuel filters HSM. When the time comes, should I put one system on, then prime system, then do the other? You know, it doesn't really matter. You could probably just do both of them and then just prime them suckers together. That's what I've wound up doing, and it's worked out all right. Yeah, so why do they include lube with the brake pads? You know, I know, man. Same.
Yeah, if they didn't want you
Same.
to use it, but a lot of people are saying the reason they're including lube with the brake pads is because that's for the pins. It's not for the pads themselves.
Daddy
There's
Diesel
actually
says,
there's a very good reason that they try to sell lube with the brake pads. Are we talking about the pad sets that have lube in the box, or
yeah,
you go to the
Yeah.
store? Okay, all right, never mind.
yeah.
One of the things I noticed about brake pad grease or brake pin grease is some of the brands are not compatible with rubber. So basically the way I figured this out is I went on Amazon and just reading the reviews. One of the main ones, brake pin grease, people were like going into the fine details of it and reporting after a couple years, the rubber deteriorated. So you really got to look and make sure you get one that's like straight up saying contact with rubber. Otherwise, long term could be an issue.
Right. Well, or something like that. Or
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I
Here's
see
a
that
question.
where that could be a possibility.
Here's a question for you. I'll go one step further after cleaning the pins. I got one of those little brushes that go on my quick connect drill and clean out the hole.
Yeah.
For the pin.
Ooh, yeah, I need to get one of those.
I have a whole kit for that. But then also there was a
That's
guy
a
at
good
work.
one.
There's a dude at work that he said, you think those pins are cool? They actually make a dingleberry kit that's for the slide pins where you don't have to use those brushes. You can slide like a cylinder hone that's made for those cylinders where those pins go. And it's a dingleberry hone that goes in there and you spray some penetrant on it and you run that thing back and forth and it cleans it real fine. And it's not just a brush scraping anymore. You actually are cleaning it out with a almost like a piston hone.
I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna Google that dingleberry home.
What Ford, is there a motorcraft one that you guys use, or what do they recommend there?
What grease?
For brake pin grease.
It's
They got brake
it's actually
calipers.
it's actually dielectric and caliper grease at the same.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's in the
Hold
tube.
on.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah,
XG12, which is just electrical grease.
I got
Yeah.
both of those. Hold up.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is there's just electrical grease, which is thinner. I like
Mhm.
using that for electrical contact stuff. It really does get into areas a little bit deeper. And then there's the XG12, which is a
Pistol bore brush.
dielectric and brake pin grease.
Yeah.
I like the Ford stuff. I prefer to use the Ford stuff over other stuff, especially if I'm kind of brand specific with that. If I have it, I'm using it. I'm not going to go get Permatex or something else, but I have used Permatex stuff as well, like their ultra synthetic brake lube and stuff like that. I really like their stuff.
I got some stuff. I think it's from Permatex. It's I guess it's like an organic kind. It's like a blue color.
Yeah.
And it's really, really thin. That stuff works pretty good.
I think that's the ultra or the synthetic formula or something like that. Organic synthetic or ultra synthetic.
It works pretty good.
I like it. Yeah.
no time ever have I ever done brakes and I've used anti-seize to lube any of the brake components.
Oh my God.
So let's not get confused with the lube and a brush and easy and
I've had people do
No.
the anti-seize thing and bring the damn car into the dealership, and they're like, "Why is my brake squealing?" And I'm like, "Did you do the brakes?" Yeah, I did the brakes. I lubed up everything. I cleaned everything, and I was like, "What's this silver shit all over the place? Did you use anti-seize?" Well, yeah, it
what's
said
the
to lube
silver
the pins.
shit all over
There's molten anti-seize just
Yeah.
running
Oh,
down everything.
Poor boss, Ray.
Yeah.
Aaron, this is CRC brake.
You see the
Caliper.
big beautiful lips.
Trying to get my face in there.
There you go. Yeah, your
No,
logo's
this is-
my
Oh, hey,
Get
favorite.
Eric.
rid of the freaking background. It's washing it out.
Now there's a difference between the anti-seize and then the copper.
Oh yeah, that's
Brembo comes
good.
with Brembo
Oh, yeah.
comes with the copper stuff.
That's what I've been using for my EGTs and NOx sensors and O2 sensors and
But then
That's
there's
just been-
also we can get into another area that's kind of a fucking rabbit hole. It's copper silicone that you can literally use on exhaust components and stuff too, like areas that are real, like you're doing a manifold on a 6.7 and the rear portion of it where one of the studs or something broke kind of got really pitted and you're worried about an area that may not seal correctly and you're like, I'm not replacing a cylinder head because of that and I don't want to fill this in with anything real crazy. You can get that copper colored silicone that's rated for like 900 degrees Fahrenheit and you could actually fill in those little pitting areas and then kind of clean it off, smooth it back out, and then take your gasket and stuff and put everything back on and it'll help seal all that in because of the temperature that it's rated for.
T831, it'd be all right.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Ah. All right, I got a question people have been asking. I had gotten a couple comments on some older videos, and this doesn't go just for 6.7s or Powerstrokes ever. But when jump starting, we were kind of talking about this in the beginning, specifically, because one, it's cold out, and two, a particular somebody we're not going to talk about had brought it up. But what do you do when you jump start your 6.7? Are you using a jump pack? Are you using jumper cables? What do you do? Do you put the red to the black and the black to the red? Do you put the red to the red and the black to the black? Do you hook one car up before you do the other one? I know I have found when I'm jumping trucks, usually I'm using a jump pack, which by the way, I need to get a new one. Don't really use the jumper cables too much, but the first battery I'm going to go to is the passenger battery. I found good luck going straight to the passenger battery versus going to the driver's battery. Maybe
Closer
just
to
a
the
shorter
starter.
shorter run of cabling to the
I find
starter.
the passenger battery works the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But when you guys are using jump packs or jumper cables, what is your method? Are you hooking up the dead car and hooking it to the donor car and then starting the donor car? Are you hooking the donor car up and hooking the cables up and then go and put them on the dead car? I mean, it kind of doesn't really matter. But people were going to say, neither here nor there. Don't hook the red up first. Hook the black up first. Remember what set to jump? We know. We know. We know.
Yeah, we know.
Follow the jump pack instructions. Had to use it once this week. Mine is getting pretty blew out. I can use it maybe one time and then it drains down. I need to get a new one. It is a Noco. It's got to be pushing 5 years, 4 years maybe.
You can replace the
Oh.
battery in those, just so you know.
Oh,
We've
can
done it.
you?
Yeah. It's
No
sometimes
kidding.
sometimes it's like a motorcycle battery or something off the shelf.
I didn't even dawn on me to do that.
Yeah.
All right, so here's a scenario. So here's the scenario.
The GP150s are pouch batteries. I've taken them apart because I had one that died.
Yeah, we're talking about the bigger jump boxes, right? Not the little guys.
Yeah,
What's
like the
that?
little Noka ones, like the little,
Oh, those, yeah, you can replace those too, but it's not worth the trouble.
yeah.
Got that huge one that'll jumpstart a dead horse.
Yeah.
We have a dolly that has 2 deep cycle marines on it because we get these dead cars have been sitting forever, especially diesel trucks. It's the only thing that starts them.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most frustrating things is you carry the jump box out to a car and it almost makes it work. Okay.
Yes.
But then you go and fetch another jump box, you hook that
Mhm.
one up too, and then that one almost makes it work. So you've got 2 jump boxes on there and it's not going to do it. Then you got to drag something else out with an engine and you hook up the cables and you better hope you have good cables. You know, it doesn't work with the, you know, the little bagged up ones you find inside of the spare tire compartment. Those
No.
things, those couldn't jumpstart a lawnmower.
Mhm.
They couldn't.
work-
They
They're
can.
so
I've done it.
small.
When I worked on police cars,
Well-
man, sometimes they die so much. I'd have a jump box and the battery in the trunk and then open the hood and you got the jump post. So you got 2 jump boxes on the car. So
Yeah.
it worked.
And some of them won't. You have to look for. This is something important when you're looking for a jump box. If you're looking like we do, where Anthony, me, Aaron, all of us, were sent out to the field in the abyss of all the cars out there, and hey, you got to go find ticket number 671. It's a F350. This thing hasn't been started in 2 years, and the customer wants you to
Buried in the
replace
middle.
fuel. And you got to get jump boxes on it. Now there's 2 different types of jump boxes. There's a jump box that you can get off like the Mack truck or the Cornwell truck or the Snap-on truck. It's a bigger, more upright 1400, 1500, 1600 amp one. And those are not smart jump boxes. Those simply just hook up and they're ready to roll. Now, we good?
I have no idea what just happened.
I don't think so.
Well, A-Rod is gone.
He's gone.
Where did he go?
He left his own party.
His internet, man, he's got too much ice on
There
his
he is.
on
There
his
he
wire.
is.
Is he back?
Are we still alive?
No, we are still live.
It says we're live.
Are we still
Oh, we're
live?
back.
I don't know.
So, am I good?
We can all breathe
yeah.
now.
I don't know if I'm still live or not.
You're live.
You are, yeah.
Are we?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, the chat's not saying that we're not, so that must mean we are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
we're
we're
Are
still
we, are
on.
we still here?
It still indicates live in the top left corner. So,
Okay, I don't
Oh, cool,
know.
we're
I
good.
lost my internet and I had to switch over to my hotspot. So I was like, I'm sorry, I apologize. All right, carry on.
Pay your bill, man. Pay your bill.
so the ones that you get off the truck, they're going to be good for a specific scenario. You go out to the vehicle, it's got dead batteries in it. You got to move the vehicle from outside into the shop so you can start to work on it or whatever it may be. You can hook those bigger jump boxes that are regular jump boxes to it, and it will have the reserve capacity and stuff to continue to run the vehicle so you can get it in the shop and you'll be fine. Now, I use a smart jump pack that has a built-in computer or some kind of smart technology into the lead, and it'll give me a bunch of capacity right now. Lithium battery, it'll fire up what even those big giant horse jump packs and stuff won't do. Some of the jump packs that you find that are on the trucks and stuff won't do. But those lithium packs, I'll take my 3000 amp Ava Pow that I paid $90 for off of Amazon, and I'll start an F350 up where the big horse one won't, or some of the other regular jump packs won't, because the capacity that it gives, it's just not there on startup. Now that Ava Pow will fire that truck up singly by itself, and it's the size of 2 or 3 cell phones, and it'll fire that diesel truck up. And I've got videos showing people where one's just straight out dead. It's an F350, and I go hook that up and it fires it right up. But that smart technology kicks that jump pack off right away, and you can't drive the vehicle if it's going to die again or something's wrong with the charging system, and you need those regular jump packs to actually carry it over so you can get it in the shop and work on it. The smart ones won't do that. Typically they cut off because I think there's no reserve capacity there. And on top of that, it's giving that vehicle so much power up front to start, it doesn't want to damage the system, because it'll take that voltage from like 8 volts dead, 7 volts dead, and it'll jack it all the way up to like 16.5 volts on startup just to get the vehicle started. And then it shuts the system off so it protects it. So there's 2 different styles, and you got to kind of pick what you want.
Didn't you give one of those away
Yeah,
to one of your customers?
Yeah, I gave a couple away. I'm left to I've got the Locathor, Lokithor. Just did a recent video on that. It's a 2500 amp, and it's got a 150 psi. It's called the Locathor AW401, and it's got a power washer pump in the bottom of it. So I actually drained my entire pool. I did like a stress test on it the other night, and I went 7.5 hours using that little pump in the bottom of that battery pack, sucking the water out of the top of the tarp of the pool. That was 8 to 10 inches deep, and that thing still kept going. Bring it in, charge it, put it back out there for about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, bring it in, charge it, and it just kept taking every bit of what I was throwing at it. And I was like, how in the hell is this little jump pack able to do all this? Like the Chinese technology stuff, they're really building in a lot of like technology into their jump packs and stuff. Now, who would have thought that you get a washer pump, a tire pressure pump, and a jump pack all in one unit? And they did it. They're the only ones that I know of that have done it. And I own one, and I absolutely love it. But as soon as the vehicle starts, that system will kick off. It's one of those smart deals. So that's where a regular booster comes in. If I got to make it from outside in the lot to inside the shop, and I need the rest of that battery capacity to get the vehicle in there, you won't be able to do that with a smart charger.
I had to use it today. And it just crapped out on me. I told myself, dang it, I need to get a new one. I need to find
You should look at that if you want to spend some cash or whatever. It's not a lot. When I paid for my AW401, I paid $430 for it. And that was right when it first showed up on Amazon. And then me and Ray went out to the auto show, and they were actually right across from us, kitty corner, Locathor. I went back there behind the booth, and they demonstrated how to use it. And I was just amazed. I was like, ironically, you guys are here and you're displaying one of your bigger units, your nicer units. And I just bought this a week ago, and I didn't even know you guys were going to be here. And they were like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's cool that we got to talk to you or whatever. We just put that out on the market. And they dropped the price from $430 down to $299.99. And I think if you sign up for Amazon Prime, you can get it down to like $249.99. And it's a dirty jump pack, man. I absolutely love the thing. It runs about the same price as the Nocos. The Nocos are good, but I'm kind of impartial to it. I think the Nocos have they have a heads up on some of the other packs because the Nocos have better leads. Their jump cables and stuff are a little beefier, and they're actually put together than some of the aftermarket companies.
Okay, I could see you. I could see you on that. I could see you on
I
that.
got a quick question for you, and Bearded Vortech. With the Motorcraft grease, the one that's dielectric and for brake pins, is that the which one is this that I have?
XG12.
XD12.
With an X?
XG12.
Okay.
If you
X,
have
you
it,
know, like xylophone.
XG12, that's one I have, yeah.
yeah.
So I can use that on pins too.
You can use it on, what I would do is, and this is me being critical here, you could take it for what you want. I ain't the brightest crayon in the box, but I'm not the stupidest or the dullest one either. I like XG12 on bigger connection cables, bigger, heavier stuff, battery cables, grounds that are on the chassis or something like that. If you're trying to keep moisture out of it, stuff like that. I wouldn't take XG12 and put it on big connectors unless you absolutely have to, like where small pins are. I would use the stuff that Aaron was talking about, which is actually called electrical grease. It's thin. And here's another thing too to think about. Understand the relationship between what you're doing and the chemical that you're putting on it. Grease inside a connection is not to make the connection better. It's to keep moisture and stuff out. A lot of people mess up the relationship. It's dielectric in the name itself. It doesn't promote better connection.
So don't put it on your batteries.
it promotes shit from getting inside the connector. So if you actually like, if somebody can pull it up, like if you pull it up on Google real quick and look at what the meaning of dielectric grease is, a lot of us think that we're putting it in connections to make the connection better, but we're really not. We're putting it in the connections to actually protect the connections. It's not going to promote better connectivity.
So
Well, if you
don't
already-
unplug everything and put that in everything.
If you already
If
have
it-
corrosion and stuff in there, you need to fix that problem first, and then you put your dielectric grease in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To
Okay,
make the
but-
connection.
But this stuff you can put in brake pins,
Yeah.
The XG12, yeah.
and
It's
that's
really,
is that what's in there from the factory or what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Some of them
Yeah.
is that, some of them has like a white lithium or whatever. grease in it.
Mhm.
just use the fucking XG12. Sorry, excuse my mouth. Use the XG12. You're going to love it. It'll be fine. It comes in a nice little squeeze tube and you'll be good.
I never knew you could do that. Learn something every day.
Say you have some, or you want me to send you some?
I have some, but I'm gonna order some more.
I mean, Cliffy would probably rather use bacon grease,
No.
but that's neither here nor there.
Okay,
guys
so
think about that?
what we were talking about, and we didn't finish because of the whole Aaron leaving us and then coming back or whatever he did, was so there something was mentioned by a creator that we're not going to say their name out loud because we don't want to give them any clout. Is
Start a
whenever
war.
whenever you jump start a vehicle, you don't want to have one vehicle running and then start the other one while it's running. You want to just let one vehicle run with the cables hooked up to it and leave it there for 10 minutes or so. And that should be enough time to get the vehicle started. You might have to leave it a little bit longer. Typically, you got to leave it much longer than that. So that person was already off with that recommendation, especially if you have a vehicle that's not been taken care of very good. The theory was when the vehicle started, the charging system is going to operate in the opposing direction and cause some kind of catastrophic failure inside the electrical system, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. We have voltage regulators, we have diodes in the system and stuff that protect feedback voltage and stuff. Or one way, there's a reason why we have these checks and safeties in the system, and the battery itself actually absorbs a huge portion of any kind of shock before it even gets to the alternator itself. So the person that put this out, I'd never listened to again in my entire life. And second of all, that they just need to quit putting out information because they put out poor information. And that part wasn't true. And what should have been specified is when you are jump starting a vehicle using jumper cables, you should use something like a main engine ground or like a big ground on the top of the engine somewhere, like a stud. When I jump the transits, because the battery's under the seat in the transits, I'll pick a big stud on the front of the engine and I'll actually hook my ground up there. So when I jump start the vehicle, it has to go through more of a mass instead of directly to the battery. And it makes good connection that way. Very, very sufficient connection. And the vehicle starts up beautifully. And I never even have to go inside the vehicle, pull the seat up, pull the cover off, and the battery's under the seat.
I hate that.
They actually prefer you use an engine stud or an engine ground when doing this for safety reasons. That should have been said, and it should have been taught to do it that way. But, you know, this person has a lot of followers and people think they know everything and they don't.
So hey, what are the safety reasons to grab the stud?
The stud is for issues with electronic components and the amount of connections that actually go from the body to the frame, from the frame to the engine, from the engine to the battery. There's more connections that way, and you actually protect the system components better that way than hooking directly up to the battery in case somebody was to make a stupid decision,
Yep.
hook something up wrong. At least you have more of that shock absorption there than blowing main engine fuses and stuff like that. I've seen people go directly to the battery.
Yep.
They go directly to the battery. They hook the connections up wrong. This is the safety part that should have been taught, but wasn't. Completely shit the bed on this completely and went to some other
I know who
outlandish.
we're talking about.
Hook the connections up correctly should have been one. And if you go directly to the battery and you hook them up wrong, typically you will take out fuses, you could damage modules and stuff like that. And a lot of our bigger mega fuses are not easy to find, especially some imports and stuff that had been out of stock for a while. Some of the Hondas and stuff, we've had to stock some extra stuff in case we take in a trade or we got to pick one up from auction or whatever. We had a guy hook up the jumper cables the wrong way and blew like the main 150 amp or 200 amp fuse in it.
Oh,
And
Oh,
it was like an act of Congress to find one. And finally we found a Honda dealer that was like out of the state that had one. And we had to pay a premium price for it because it
That
was not one
sucks.
that was easy to get. So that should have been. And if you go to the engine, if you go to the block and do that, it's not going to be as catastrophic as if you go to the battery and do that. So there's a theory behind it, and this person doesn't know the industry.
I know I've been jumping a vehicle before and trying to grab the ground closer to the starter
That's
to try to
fine.
get up, you know.
Here's one for you. Whenever you're doing your flushes and stuff and you're underneath the vehicle, some of you have already heard this from me, and you're hooking up your flush machine. Why are you going to take the cables and drape them all the way up over the top of the vehicle to the battery? You have a main power cable and a main ground right there at the starter that's going to be more sufficient, and you
Yep.
don't risk damaging the customer's paint and stuff, and you just hook it right up underneath there, and you're already under the vehicle, clean, moving back and forth instead of dragging this thing back and forth on the customer's paint.
What about revving up the engine a little bit on the jump start on the car that's
Okay.
running?
Okay, so the theory is if you increase the RPMs and there's a somewhat of a load there, or there's the alternator sees that it needs to increase its amperage, increasing RPM will do some of that as well. But if the system doesn't see that it needs it, you can rev it up all you want. You're not going to get more out of it. The computer needs to see that it's calling for more of a load in order to take advantage of that RPM. It's not just going to automatically give you more because the RPM is increased.
I think it
So-
depends on the car too.
Right. There may be some truth to that.
Older
Some of the
older stuff definitely has different output at idle versus off idle.
Sure.
true.
that, as I was going there, that the older
Sorry.
stuff you would see more of a benefit to it. On the newer stuff, it doesn't quite work that way. Another myth that we find is I had my hand slapped on this when I first got into the field. I was working on over the road trucks. You know how you get into trucks and the air compress, like big trucks, and you have to build up air pressure if you have like a system leak. And you'll
Yeah.
see guys go out there and they'll just they'll lay on the throttle and try to get it to pump as fast as you possibly can. And our foreman came out there and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just trying to get this air pumped up."
Every truck yard does it.
And he said, why are you doing that? And I said, well, just to get the air built up faster. And he said, grab me the next time you have to go out here and do this. How long did that take you? I said, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 minutes, and air is fully. He said, well, let's go out there on the next one that you have where it's really low. Let's do it. Well, it took like 8 minutes or whatever. And he said, you see how much you're actually saving? Nothing. And you actually see how much more wear you're putting on the system by doing that. Quit doing that to the customer's vehicles. You're saving a minute, but you're increasing the wear, racking the throttle and stuff out to get a minute, to save a minute when you come pump up the air in the system. Quit doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's also, it has its own regulated function. Yeah, it might increase the speed a little, but it's not worth it compromising wearing somebody's engine or adding more wear to something when it's just not necessary.
Let me go over here. I have something, out of emails.
Yeah.
On emails. I think we're going to go through one. Full screen CarPlay. I have verified that over the air update. Some people are getting full screen Apple CarPlay. FYI. Where are we at? All right, here's a good one. Hey, Rod, new subscriber, love the channel. I'm reaching out to you with a coolant issue I'm having with my 6.7. Every few days, I'm having to add coolant to my primary coolant reservoir degas bottle. I'm not leaking any coolant and have not seen any visually taste or smell in the engine oil. However, during cold, sometimes even when warm, the engine startups, I get a period of white smoke and a haze of blue smoke out the tailpipe. The CCV seems to be ventilating properly, no excessive back pressure to the oil cap. In the last 6 months, I've gone through almost 3 jugs of coolant. Could this be a bad turbo? That's the only thing I can come up with. The cooling system holds pressure every time, but somehow I'm obviously getting coolant into the combustion chamber and burning it. And the only thing that makes sense to me is the turbo. What do you think, Ryan?
I think EGR cooler.
Yeah, I was gonna say EGR cooler.
This is a 2014 F250. So, we have
EGR
had
cooler.
problems with EGR coolers.
Isn't there a connection under the turbo sometimes, Aaron, that leaks just a little bit, and because of the heat?
Yeah.
But that leaks
that's
into
usually
the
like
valley.
fittings. Yeah.
Coolant has no way of getting into the turbo, physically into the turbo,
Right.
because it's got its own cooling path and it doesn't go around the seal. So EGR
Yeah.
cooler is about the only thing I could think of.
That's what I was thinking as soon as he started reading that EGR cooler. That's what I would suspect.
Mm-hmm.
I got bit by one of those. It took like 35 hours to drop 5 psi,
Wow.
but it did finally drop. Maybe he should do a hot to cold pressure test
I've
and see
had
what happens.
I've had the best luck with doing the hot to cold pressure test. That's the best luck that I've had. And there's a reason why Ford gives us such a long range whenever we're doing this test. It has to stay on there for quite a while because it may not show up right away. But as soon as it hits a certain temperature range, all of a sudden it'll drop down and you'll get fluid out of nowhere. The next day or 6 hours later, you'll come back and you've already lost 5 or 10 psi. And you know that's a red flag. Something's leaking somewhere.
Speaking of the leak, we have a channel member here in blue that was kind of blue because he himself was having a leak on his 6.7 Powerstroke. Now, this particular unit had a different hot side pipe on it, red in color, and this noise almost sounded like remember when the 6.0s would have too much cooling system pressure and you'd hear the high-pitched whine noise of the pressure relief in the cap, relieving pressure, and you could actually hear it driving, from underneath the hood. That's what it sounded like. And I know Ford boss, he was, I don't know if you necessarily were looking at it, but he was
No,
talking
I
to
heard
you
it.
about it.
I
You heard
heard
it, exactly, That's
heard
right,
it.
you were driving it.
You'd get on it and then you not super hard. You didn't have to be hammering on it, but you
Just
get
the
on
weight
it
of the
pretty good.
vehicle.
You'd get on it pretty good and then let out of it, and it would almost sound like a small vacuum leak is what it would sound like. And you'd get like almost like a suction whine sound. It would just be real faint, and it would do, you could almost do it every time if you got to if you hammer, and it would make that sound as soon as you'd let out, and make that sound.
It was in coinciding with boost. I knew it was something to do with boost, whether it had been something from a charge pipe, it was something on the driver's side. And I went as far as to put the GoPro on while we were trying to get the noise to happen, and it got louder as we got closer to the hot side pipe. And what we found was the clamps for the hot side pipe. We had 3 clamps and 1 quick disconnect and clamp together, and it needed to be tightened. So what was happening was under good heavy load, the weight of the vehicle, you couldn't do it just brake torquing it in the stall. You had to be burning fuel. Power. I mean, he was driving it hard, to get it, and it seemed to be a little louder when it was cold. Wasn't an exhaust leak. It was old Crowdy. I know he's happy. Old Ruby Red's all good to go, but it was kind of difficult.
Why didn't you do the boost? Why didn't you do the pressure and smoke test? Pressure that bad boy up to 35, 40 PSI, you would have found it in the
Yeah, well,
bay.
we didn't have time to do that.
Oh, you had time to go out there and beat on it though.
Shoot,
Get him, get him, get him.
I'll get him.
my man was, would you just cut the damn wire?
I'll get him. I mean, how hard is it to pull the map sensor out?
Right on top, 7 milli bolt.
Pull that map sensor out, put an air gun in there, and let her rip tater chip. You'll
Man,
find that leak.
Let her rip tater chip.
I
Hey,
just
yes,
noticed that Cody's name is Bob Vila.
He is
Yeah.
Bob Vila.
Hey, Aaron, just say yes, shop foreman, yes, shop foreman.
Yes, shot
Yes,
foreman.
shop foreman.
Yeah, he
What
he
are you
about
talking
ripped
about?
me.
He had a whole day Friday before he did the whatever he did on Saturday with Kraus.
Yeah,
Getting
the
called out on the show, man.
called out.
That's on the show.
I mean, I called him out too on a 401. I said, "Did you check for intake restrictions?" And he goes, "No, I didn't go that far."
Well, I mean, I checked for intake restrictions, but I had never even thought to check the little 3-port water tower there.
Stick
And
your
never again.
flashlight. Stick your flashlight in the port on the intake, and you'll see if there's light coming out the other end.
Never again will I forget.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You know what I did see today was my first KC turbo. Mr. CP, or I'm sorry, Bob Vila actually has one on his OBS, if you didn't know. But it was a 6.7 with a stage 2.
Whistler?
Yeah.
I bet it whistles, don't it?
Hey, if y'all hear somebody come, wuss. It was whistling.
Mine sounds like a 6-liter going down the road.
Did you see the one?
Screaming.
Did you see the one that Diesel Tech Chris just did on it was a factory 6.7 turbo. They took the guts out of it and upgraded it to a, was it 10 blade or something like that? It's a direct bolt in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder if it was one of those KC Housings do-it-yourself kits.
I don't know. I just know he said the only
Oh.
thing that they changed was like a 10 blade on one side, and I think on the other side it was something else. And you got a little bit more whistle out of it, that's for sure.
Dang.
I know.
Look at that puppy dog.
I
Look at that
know.
old puppy dog.
She's a good one. I got 2 of them here. The other one just breaks stuff with her tail.
Oh, puppy dog. No transits. No transits. I just got asked today in a comment. Like, how come you don't like transits?
Work on one, you'll understand it real quick.
Yeah, I just, they're just not,
They're
an
European.
abomination.
they're just not fun.
They're
Abomination.
European.
Yeah.
They're very European.
Hang on, there's a transit guy in the comments. Careful.
So,
Careful, boys.
No,
Well-
he's fixing my floors. If we upset him, he won't come back to finish the floors.
Just remember, if you're putting an engine in a transit and you don't have vacuum, you need a new engine or a new camshaft.
oh, that's right. Good call, Aguado.
Because you done moved the thrust bearing and now the camshaft's out of line.
Oh.
You're gonna have
Oh.
Okay.
brownie.
We
So
got-
be sure you put the vacuum pump in right.
We've had a couple of them where the crank location pin shears off, and in order to get, you can replace the pin, one of the techs was going to put an engine in it, and we went down and I talked to him and I said, wait, before you do that, I think that's a serviceable component. And when we got the front cover and stuff off, the chains and everything off, we were looking at it, and I got a video on it in my channel, and you can actually order the location pin. I call it a Woodruff pin, but it's not a key. And what I did was, you got to do what you got to do. I grounded it out through the water jacket after we cleared all the coolant out of it, and welded to the top of the sheared off pin that was down in the crank, and pulled the pin out of the crank and replaced it with the replacement component to get the customer's vehicle back on the road instead of replacing the whole entire engine. I hate those transits. I hate those freaking transits. I hate doing the exhaust manifolds on them, the broken studs on them, the coolant leaks and stuff on them. I hate them.
I love doing the fuel systems. I was doing them in 4.5 hours. When you had that recall that paid 10 hours to do them.
You remember that?
I did 50 of them in a row.
Cody, you remember the EGR cooler blowing out on them?
I was at Roush when they were testing all those EGRs, so I put many EGR coolers on it.
I hate that fucking job, man. I hate those coolers.
This is how you work in.
Yeah. So Ford Boss and Ray and Ford Beard Tech and and Mr. Continuity, you know, we all how do we get paid for our time? I'm gonna give you a scenario. Truck comes in, you spend a couple hours diagging it, customer declines the repair, truck, if the repair would have been covered, it would have been under warranty, but now for whatever reason it's not, and the customer doesn't want to pay. So time has been served and invested in this truck and trying to figure out the root cause of the problem. How do you ensure that you're going to get compensated for your time? If you do stuff to a truck and you're here to do a job, do you think it's fair that you do this diagnosis as complimentary? How do you go around telling the customer this is what it's going to be to get his truck fixed, and this is how much it's going to be, and this is how much they're going to pay, but then they don't want to pay for your time?
How much is the time?
Yeah. I mean, you're not giving the truck back.
You can pay me a little now or a lot later.
Well, how much do I owe? I just gave you what? How much? I gave you what? 2 hours or what?
Yeah.
Here's how this burned me. I had an hour diag to figure out the problem, and I could not figure out in the hour what the problem was, but I got sidetracked. 2.5 hours later, I ended up figuring out what the problem was, and it took me another hour on top of that to fix the problem. Then we go back to the customer like, look, we should have called you and asked for more time because that would have been the right thing to do. My tech did find the problem. He did go ahead and fix the problem while he was there. He got carried away and excited and wanted to get you the vehicle back. But, you know, it did take him, you know, let's just say 3.5 hours or 4 hours. And I know we only quoted you 1 hour, but this is what happened. He's got video footage and pictures and everything else to show you. You guys know how I do things. I record everything, just like most of us do. And it would be nice to get his time out of it. If you would be so kind as to forgive us for not contacting you ahead of time. We do have all the receipts to prove it, but you know, we're at your mercy now. And the customer said, no, you should have called me. You should have asked for my approval and stuff like that to keep going. And you didn't. I'm not paying that. You should have called me first. Well, the dealership paid me my labor hours, and they actually lost. It wasn't so much me that lost, it was them. And it just sucks when you're in situations like that, because as a technician, as a mechanic, as a shop owner like Ray, Eric, whoever, you know, when we're doing these things, technically at the end of that diag, we're supposed to call you back up and say, look, this is going to be much more complicated than this. I'm going to need at least another 2 or 3 hours to get into this. Can I at least get that approval from you?
Yep.
That's what we're supposed to do. But a lot of us actually care more about the customer than our own self, and we get carried away and we're trying to figure out the problem. And then the next thing you know, you're 2.5, 3 hours into a job that you only got an hour approved for. You know, what do you do? I mean, what's fair? What's not fair? Should I be that stickler like some other techs are every single time and say, yeah, hey, guess what? My hour's up. I need another hour. I need another 2 hours. I need another 3 hours. I mean, technically that's the right thing to do. But how do you guys feel in the comment section? Would you be okay if one of us called you up and said, hey, this ain't going to work in an hour. It's more problematic than what we thought. It's going to take at least several more hours to figure this out.
Mm.
I've had
That's kind
similar
of
situations. They
that's the
paid
service
internal.
advisor's job. I mean, it's their job to kind of be the middleman between you and the customer. And if you've exhausted your hour and you tell your advisor, I need more hours, they're supposed to get that approved. If they tell you, go ahead, just figure it out, and then 3 hours later you come back with justified 3 more hours, and then they can't pay you, that's not really on the customer though. That's kind of on the advisor. So
Right,
they're
right.
responsible to get you paid for that. So
I
it's
feel ya.
they kind of
Yeah, but
I mean,
what if the service advisor calls up Mr. Customer and doesn't just, pull from the hip and say, go ahead and do it, and calls up the customer like they're supposed to and say, look, it's going to be much more complicated than what we thought. And this is the reasons why we need at least a couple more hours. And, the customer's looking at you like, wait, you told me it was an hour diag fee. Now we're going to be 3 hours into this.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
When you can try
do they
to,
want it fixed or not?
you
Yeah.
can try to tell, like, if your service manager wants to take care of the customer, you can try to get internal pay,
Yeah.
at least 2 hours of internal pay, but it doesn't always work that way. You know that.
Yeah. And chances are, if it's a customer that's not a reoccurring customer and they're brand new,
Yeah. It's
they're sometimes they help, but a lot of service advisors are like, we don't have that kind of relationship with this customer or this shop owner. If somebody came to see Ray for the first time and he's not getting those vibes, like this is going to be a customer that I'm going to build a good relationship with, what do you do? Do you keep eating up your time? I mean, you got to cover yourself. And I'm to the point now where, and I still haven't lost it. Don't get me wrong. I still give up so many hours of my time to the customers because I really do care. But at the same time, my leadership is right. You do have to get paid for your time. And it is only right that if you need more time, we have to tell the customer that, because they're obligated to pay. And if they don't want to pay, then they can come pick up their vehicle.
I think we have excuse me. Yeah, our vehicle's under warranty. We don't have to pay for it because we're not going to have to pay out of pocket for it. Drop the vehicle off, it gets fixed. I'm not worrying about it. Well, guys, when we bring our vehicles in, the dudes that know about their trucks, are going to try to get codes pulled or see if they can fix it themselves. The guys who bring the trucks in and think that we have this computer that we hook up to it and it tells us what's wrong with it.
The computer
Oh.
machine.
That's what the
And
forums
they
are for.
don't understand when you go to them for additional time because you have a wiring problem, and now we have to, that hour checkout does not include me accessing the wiring harness that runs from the engine into the vehicle to diagnose why you have no frontal deployment on your airbag. Sir, we're going to need to get some more time from you. We're going to have you okay maybe $500, and that's going to include us getting into it. And if we find the problem sooner, well, it's not going to be $500, sir. It's going to be something more reasonable. But we have to, I don't want to go back to this customer 5 times and say, hey, I'm going to need more time. Hey, I'm going to need more time. Hey, we're going to need more time. I'm going to sound like a GD freaking, does this guy even know what he's doing? I mean, obviously there's extenuating circumstances, but you kind of go into, a broken bolt in a manifold type job, not quoting him. Well, I'm gonna need to get a couple of hours from you, you know, and like, come on. You know, going into the job, you know, what the risks are once you get down, you know, into your career, like you're looking at this job and the condition of the metals, you know, yeah, broken bolts.
Mhm.
Well, if we touch on what Ray said with the service advisor job, sometimes they could flop too. We had a 99 F-150 come in, and they were going to give the job to a semi-skilled tech. The guy had an exhaust manifold hiss. And when you go to all data to check out to see what the time is to remove that exhaust manifold, it's going to say something like 2.4 hours or 2.1 hours or 2.5 hours. And we all know that job is not going to be a 2.5 hour job. That job is going to be a
No.
freaking nightmare. You're going to be welding on studs, trying to extract studs that break and everything else. That job is going to be a 4.5, 5, 6 hour job. It could snowball. I've had them to where almost every single one of the studs break, and I have to extract every single one of them. And when the young guy came up to me and he said, "Look, I've seen you do a lot of these, and I need help because I'm really nervous now because they only gave me 2.5 hours to do this job. But if you look at this guy's manifold, the EGR tube is froze on it. The nut that goes down in the manifold, I got to get all that stuff off of there. What am I supposed to do?" And I said, "Well, how did they factor in their time?" "Well, they just went to all data because all data said it's 2.5 hours." And I said, "No, bro, it's a half hour a stud that breaks. And then on top of that, you got to factor in that EGR tube, taking the fitting and stuff out of it and transferring over. If the customer didn't get all the brand new parts, if you can get the fitting out of it, there's a lot more that goes into this." So that's also another area that maybe one of us should make a video on and bring up some scenarios here soon on why you can't always go by book time as well. You have to go by experience and how much you've actually dealt with this type of situation to prepare the customer for worst case scenario.
It can be tough.
That's
It
just
could be
like
real tough.
That's just like 5-4 spark plugs.
Yeah.
It could be 5
Oh,
minutes or it could
man.
be 2 hours a cylinder.
Yeah.
Well,
That
that's-
was a big, big problem back 05, 06, 07 when these things started getting 50, 60, 70,000 miles on it, come in misfires, cats melted down. And what do you mean my spark plugs can break off in my head? What, you gotta be kidding me. How is that even possible? So you mean to tell me I need to get my spark plugs replaced that are $21 a piece?
But that's the ones with the brown boots on the coil, or the black boot. The brown boot
Yeah.
ones, they were different.
They were good.
Well,
It-
the issue is, and that we're still dealing with it today at the dealership. I just recently, I say, is one of my videos within the last, I think, 6 months or so, where I had a 543 valve come in, and I had to. The engine was toast. The camshaft, when you pull off the cam caps, they were all scored and shot. There was all kinds of muck in the engine and stuff like that. But the customer did take decent care of the vehicle overall. And when they sent me the engine, they remember the beginning of 2008 is when everything switched, or mid 2008. You could either get the old 2-piece design or you can get the 1-piece design. Well, his was the 1-piece design, the better plug setup that had the black boots, and it had the smaller VCT solenoid seal that was the smaller one instead of the bigger wide one that was on the previous model. And that's how you could differentiate between the two on what you had. Is look at the top of the VCT solenoid. If it's a small circle seal, you had the updated design. Then you could pull the ignition coil off and see you had the black boots, and you pull the spark plug out, you had one solid piece, 1-piece. Well, they sent me one that had the big seals. It had the 2-piece design. And I was like, yeah, I'm not putting this engine in this guy's truck. I'm not dealing with pulling these plugs out of here because I know they're going to snap off. Something's going to break. I'm going to have to use that Ford kit to punch through it and extract it and stuff. I'm not doing it. Send me the right engine for this thing because those could be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I don't sell them. Those trucks come in with those engines. If it has that old style, out.
See ya.
I don't even buy them. I just set them right in the core. I don't care if they run great. They go right off as a core. I just don't care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
It's just-
Out of
it's just a-
circulation. Yep. Make them disappear.
Yeah, it's just a
I got
future
a-
problem for somebody. I got to rid the world of them. So Gone.
Just send them to the rebuilders so they can
They make
rebuild
good
them.
coffee tables.
None
And
A
of
lot
it's
of
too heavy.
rebuilders won't rebuild them.
Yeah, no, they don't.
I want the liability.
I got
Yep.
lucky with mine. My used one, the used one that came in had 92,000 miles on it, and it had a Wix filter on it. It looked like almost new. And then I checked the residual oil that was inside the filter. I dumped some out on top of a paper towel so I could see what it looked like. And then I cut the filter open to see if there was a bunch of debris down in the filter before I put this used engine in this guy's truck. And it was super, super, super clean. Pulled the oil cap off, looked down inside, and I was like, what is this? I've never seen a 5.4 look this clean. Like,
Now,
so somebody took care of it.
Have you guys seen any differences on the late 3-valve 5.4s, like the, I guess, 11 to 14 expeditions and navigators had still had 5.4s in them? Are there any differences between those that makes them better?
My friend Catherine, she's got a 13 expedition with a 5.4 in it, and I've already done tune up in that and no issues at all. It's
Yeah, I noticed it. Just like Mr. Continuity over here. It's like these 11 and up. I've never really had issues with them. Only thing I ever have to do on them is the exhaust manifolds. That's it. That's the only thing that I find an issue with.
Yeah.
her crossover tube was leaking though. I had to do that.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
coolant-
I
the
give it
coolant
that too.
crossover tube. Yeah.
I had a guy come in where the manifolds were leaking real bad at going, where the downpipe or the exhaust comes down, the manifolds bolt up to them, and somebody had cobbled up the manifold going down to the exhaust. And I was like, off the record, off the record, no warranty. I can seal this up and I can get you to pass emissions, and I'm going to make everything completely fine. And it's going to last a long time, but it's going to be some shade tree backyard type stuff, dude. I'm just telling you right now, because I'm not. For me to do this right, I want to replace the entire front section of the exhaust with the cats and everything and the manifolds, and it's going to cost you a fortune. Do you trust me? And the guy was like, well, you're the Ford boss. Of course I trust you. And I was like, oh, you're supposed to say, just let me have my vehicle back. I don't want to put that kind of money into it. You know how I fixed this vehicle? And this is going to be one of those things that I probably should have never admitted, is I got some JB Weld exhaust cement, and I tightened the studs up as much as I possibly could. And I took that JB Weld exhaust cement and I sealed up the whole entire rear section of the exhaust manifold all the way down into the
Heck
exhaust
yeah.
down. And it was like rock solid when I was done with that. I let it flash overnight, sit and dry, came back the next day, fired that thing up, and it was just as smooth as can be. That dude, like 20,000 miles later, still bringing that thing into the dealership with not a single leak coming out of the back of that exhaust
They got-
manifold.
Quiet as
the
a
next-
mouse.
The next person that works on it's going to be like, what the heck?
This guy said he'll never get rid of it. It's one of those vehicles that's been in his family and his life for a really long time, so he could never part ways with it. And he's like, I'll do whatever type of stuff to just keep it on the road, but I don't want to put a ton of money into it. And if it does become a problem, I'll just junk it or give it to another family member. So yeah, the only thing I had a problem with is the later, like 11 to 14, was exhaust manifold studs and just exhaust connection stuff.
So I'm kind of torn because I have our 08 F350 has an engine out of an 06 in it, and it is not healthy. It consumes oil at a rate which I don't like, and I have no desire to rebuild it. I also have no desire to find another boat anchor, but the late ones, I don't see as many of those engines bad. The prices are a little cheaper on those for me. So I didn't know. I mean, obviously the block and the crank, all that stuff's pretty similar. I just didn't know if there's anything better about those. I feel like they fixed a lot of things by that time because they've had a long time for them to fail and be bad. So they I don't even want to put in that. I don't want to do anything to that truck really, but I mean, it's got a flatbed. It's set up for I got to keep fixing it. It's got 298,000 miles on it now. It's got to get to 300.
At least before you call it quits.
Yeah, I might LS swap it. I mean, there's no emissions. It's a 1 ton. So
You guys see that 97 F-150 I worked on? 432,000 miles on it.
Wow.
4.6 liter.
Yeah.
Original engine, original trans.
I think the most mileage I've seen is the one that Aaron had on the channel, the
Million
million
mile.
mile. Yeah, the million mile Super Duty. That's the most.
That's
I've seen.
amazing.
He's got to at least have 1.7 on it now. At least.
Wow.
There's a guy that follows me on. You guys know him. What's his name? Mower Medic 1. He's here on YouTube and as well on TikTok. And he's got the old. He's got an old F-150. He's got the 4.2 in it. Am I saying that? 4.2.
Mhm.
The old V6.
Yeah.
And that thing's, I think that thing just starting to leak a little bit of coolant when he does his oil analysis. You can see that there's a little bit of extra sodium showing up, which is an indication that it's getting a little coolant in the oil. And he's losing a little bit by little bit, but it's nothing too crazy. And I think that thing's got like 400 and I don't know if it's 490,000 miles or something on it or whatever.
Damn.
And
Yeah.
it runs great.
I mean,
Yeah.
my truck's got 558.
Oh yeah, don't forget about Cody, about Bilo over here. He's got the miles on his.
That
We,
old girl just cranks off and drives.
We bought a 99 Mustang from a tow lot and the odometer didn't work and the solder joints go bad in the back of the odometer. So we took it apart, soldered it up, plugged it in, keyed on, 385,000 miles right to the auction.
Yeah.
That's a lot for those cars.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot, but I've seen a lot more than that though. Like
Oh yeah.
when Nathan is he was putting out YouTube content back in the day, but he would bring we would all hang out with our town cars and our Grand Marquis and stuff back in the day, and he started getting a knocking sound coming from the engine, and it sounded like a rod knock, but I think it was actually a flex plate that was cracked, and the transmission bell housing 462 valve where it bolts to the back of the engine, the bell housing was starting to crack all the way around because it was so old and I mean, it's probably been beat on before, but he ended up getting rid of it and sent the car to a scrapyard and salvaged everything out of it that he could because they had like brand new tires and all that stuff, which I ended up getting these brand new like $800 tires for like $300 or $400. It came with the rims and everything and Blizzaks. When they ran the VIN to check the mileage on it, it had like 550,000 miles on this thing. Somebody changed the cluster out and never updated it, but when you actually read the mileage on the ECM, it was 550,000 miles on that 462 valve. Yeah.
Wow.
Dang.
I had a local, I wouldn't call him a competitor, but a guy that's in the same industry as I am was bragging about having a 696,000 mile Saturn Vue, the first generation. And it was really clean. It ran and drove. It was a 4-cylinder CVT, which they don't make it that far, let's be honest. And it when the body control modules go bad in those cars, they go to a default highest mileage option. Like they have like some programming thing and it goes to 696,000 miles. It's just what it says. So he made this big post about how, look, I got this 700,000 mile Saturn Vue in, and all these people were like, wow, it's in great shape. It's in great shape. And it just had a bad body control module. That's all.
You call him out? Did you call
Oh
him
yeah,
out?
of course I did. It's my job.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be it would be wrong of me not to say something.
Right. Yeah, well, that's how we had one of our Super Duty customers trying to burn us. That he ended up getting called out because he had a hotshot truck, and he'd run out to California. I've told Aaron, Cody, and some of the people this. He'd run out to California for like a week or two, doing like dropping off loads and stuff like that, and come back. And we knew he used the truck for business, but why would the mileage never increase like you would expect for him driving this thing? And when we went in to look at the number of key cycles and stuff like that, something looked off. And also, when you got into the ECM data and you were able to look at it and pull it up, it was like double the mileage that he actually had on the truck. And he was trying to keep it within his aftermarket warranty standard. And we had told the guy, because the last job we were on took like 5 hours to figure out what was wrong with the truck. Don't ever do that again. If you come in here and you do anything like that to this truck again, you will no longer be allowed to bring your truck here for service. We're just not going to deal with somebody being dishonest like that.
No doubt.
Oh yeah, people try. You'd be surprised. I used to sell a bunch of clusters to the same group of people, and it was always Honda clusters, and they never wanted anything under 150,000 miles. And I'm like, guys,
Not
Like,
the
I-
Honda guys.
I'm like, look, I was born at night. It wasn't last night. There are no 20-year-old Hondas with 100,000 miles floating around St. Louis. This is just not.
Yeah,
It's just not a thing. And if they
Yeah,
are,
but
they
now-
don't need a cluster.
yeah, right.
Hey, Eric, do you remember the old RX2s?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 0 to 60 in like 4.5 seconds or 0 to 30. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Zero.
Maybe if you're lucky. If you're on
Yeah.
downgrade, maybe.
They were
Yeah.
manufactured for what, like 1970 to 77 or something like that?
I think they came out in 71 or 72. My brother would be pissed at me for saying it that way because I should know this. My brother's a hardcore Mazda guy, so he has a bunch of old
Mazda.
Mazdas. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll end it here tonight. We'll we'll convene next week for the Powerstroke console. I know DS is checked out tonight and has just left the 6 of us, which is customary for the live stream on Wednesdays. Make sure to drop him a
Oh,
he's back. He's all
Yeah,
cuddled
sleeping.
up. Look at this.
He's not
Underneath
sleeping.
his
Is it a snuggie?
freaking busted, man. He's just busted. All right, you guys. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to the channel. Friday. CP's Garage, Bob Vila, Beard Border Tech, Mr. Mazda, Sleepy DS, FBM, Rayman Ray. We'll see you guys. Thanks. See ya. Smell you later.
Cheers.